Hey everyone, welcome back to the latest episode of Undeterred. And Jamie, help me out. This is episode 6 already.
Number 6.
These are fun. They just go by so quick.
They do.
Of course, I'm Patrick Hart, one of the co-hosts. This is Jamie Selzler. And today, you guys, we have a long interview with Ryan Braunberger, and he's our Senate rep from District 10, which is Core Fargo, kind of out by West Acres. But before we get into that, I thought we'd just step this one back and have a little bit of a conversation about the role of government in our lives. Because, we talk politics, but what does that mean? Why are we talking politics? And what is the role of government in our lives? Jamie, can I start with you? What do you think government should play? What's the role?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks everyone for tuning in. Apologize. Lisa has not abandoned us, at least as far as we know. She's traveling today for one of the upcoming district conventions, so we hopefully will see her again soon. It's a great question, Pat, and it's something that we're seeing nationally, where people talk about government being too large and wasteful, etc. And then we give it, but when you start just slashing government here and there, without any sort of plan, you begin to realize how critical it is in our life. Over the years, when I've talked with people about kind of what the role of government is and why I think that government has a critical and can be a very positive role in our lives, is I walk people through an average day of how the government impacts their life. And these are often people are taken aback because they don't think about how much the government touches your life every day. So I won't go over the entire thing, but just for your morning, for example, when you get up, you maybe have an alarm. That alarm runs off of the electricity. Government regulates the electricity to make sure you can actually afford electricity. Same thing in a house where it's negative 20 degrees like it has been in North Dakota recently, where your house is warm because you can afford it, because in North Dakota, the PSC sets the utility rate, so that way you can't be priced out of the market and forced to live without heat. You get up, you go and brush your teeth. You know that the toothpaste that you're using is safe because the FDA regulates it. You take a shower and the water is clean, and because it's government provided, the government through municipal sources provides the water, so it's clean. You then maybe go and get something to eat. Your food is safe because the FDA inspects your food and has requirements. You get in your car, you go on the roads. Obviously, the government pays for the roads, pays for the safety of those roads, the traffic lights. Maybe you have to stop and put gas in your car. How do you know that when the gas station is selling you a gallon of gas, that it's actually a gallon? You know that because weights and measures are regulated. And again, in North Dakota, and like in every state, the state actually goes out and measures that at every gas station to make sure that you're getting the gallon of gas. You then go to your job where you are guaranteed a minimum wage. You are guaranteed a safe working environment that is then regulated by OSHA. And then you can go on and on throughout the day until the moment you put your head down on your pillow at the end of the night. And so folks who are anti-government, who think the government should be as small as possible, aren't living in the reality of all the ways in which a civilized society comes together through the government to provide for our collective health and safety. And so that's kind of my view when it comes to government. There's lots of other stuff government can and should be doing. But at a minimum, I think people aren't thinking about it when they just think government's terrible. They're not thinking about how it affects their life every day.
Well, you touched on something, and I'll tell you, I used to work at the PSC, and we used to have proximity to the weights and measures program. And one of the most amazing field trips I got to go to was to the state lab out by the state pen at it'd be like Main Street and 26th. It's going to get relocated to the Capitol grounds. But there's a guy, Charles Check was his name. I'll never forget his name. Really interesting guy. He had these two huge motors that he would run exactly a gallon of gas through to make sure that it was a specific octane. And depending on how long the motor ran, they could figure out if it was, 87, 89, or 91, and if it hit that grade. And I think that's important. I want good gas in my truck. But, when I think about good government, the role of government, the term that comes to my mind is safety. It's just safety in our everyday lives. I want my banks to be FDIC insured. I want them to have money if I take it out. That's a government regulation. I want my roads to be safe from repair. I want my cars to meet, EPA standards. If it says 23 miles to the gallon, I want it to get that. Like you said, Jamie, safe drinking water. I want safe communities. So when it comes to me, I think of all the regulations that the government holds businesses to account. And that's really what I see as the role of government, is to making sure that we have a society that's safe for us to live and thrive in. And I guess when I brought it up, I thought, do we want to make sure that there's safe hospitals? Do we want to make sure that, there's safe airline travels? This week's been a beast with airlines on the news every day. So I just want you guys to think about the government, about what the government does. And, I don't know. What do you think, Jamie? Do you think that a safe food system is important that we have?
I mean, clearly, I think when effective government is also government that is not overreaching as well. So my personal philosophy is that government should exist to empower health and safety for people. Government should exist to enhance our lives, to really fulfill the Constitution, to make it easier for all of us to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I think where government, I think government has a role in ensuring that people have a minimum basic level of access to healthcare, as an example, access to housing, access to food. Not that it should provide those things for people. I don't think government should provide all that, but it should facilitate access to those things. Where government tends to overreach, in North Dakota is a great example, is when you start getting, legislators dictating what books people can read, what they can access on their, on the internet. When you have anyone in the government saying, I know it's better for you than others, I think it becomes a bit of a problem. There's some things that are just common sense: clean water, clean air, food that's not poisonous. That's common sense. But when government starts stepping beyond that and telling you what you can do with your body, what you can do with, how you want to raise your kids, it becomes a real problem. And I think we've had an epidemic of this in North Dakota the last couple of years. It even goes so far as to, recently in the legislature, there's lots of talk about school vouchers, which are really just a tax payoff to private schools that are often religious schools. And whatever Republicans try to say, that takes money away from what's available for public education. The vast majority of North Dakotans are strong believers in public education and deserve that. But sometimes government stepping in and saying, no, we're going to create systems that prevent you from raising your kids the way you want, accessing healthcare the way you want. And beyond that, we're also going to take money away from education and start funneling that towards some of these private schools. That's government stepping beyond what I think is acceptable. And I think people will reject it if given the choice.
Yeah, and I hadn't thought about this prior to this conversation, but have you heard of this philosophy, let them be? Have you ever heard of that? My wife's plugging through this book about just letting other people do what they want. Just let them be. I'm not going to worry about it. Let them have their own ideas. Get away from this should mentality. They should do this and they should do that. And that's kind of the way I feel about the government. Just let people be. Was reading this week about the takeover of the word conservatism. I'm a Democrat. I feel like I'm fiscally conservative. I don't want to spend money we don't have. I don't think the government should be in that business. But I'm also socially liberal. And I think what happened with term conservatism is fiscal conservatism got overtaken by social conservatism, which are drastically different things. When we talk about the idea of letting them be, Social conservatism doesn't do that. They want to be in your doctor's office. They want to know, who's using what bathroom, what books you're reading. And I think that's a step too far. Just let them be. Ryan and I just in a couple minutes talk about the library bills. And I'll tell you what, 11 and a 15-year-old, I wish they would set their phones down and read any book. And also we're kind of talk about the prison system and libraries in the prison system. Are those affected by this legislation? Is there going to be a back section? So again, I don't feel that government needs to be in my life that much. I feel like I should have a little bit more control. And I also want to take back that term conservatism, because I don't think we should spend money that isn't there. So those are my takes on that. Jamie, are you a conservative?
I'm certainly no. I would not. I wouldn't use that phrase for myself. I certainly have. There's some things I have that are maybe conservative beliefs, not in the political sense. For a long time, it was the Republican Party who really talked about being independent, and they were proud of that. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and those kinds of things. For many years, Republicans didn't really even talk about issues like abortion. It wasn't until they realized that they could take advantage of a lot of folks who have deeply held beliefs in that issue, and use that issue to drive a wedge in our country, and certainly in our political system. So I agree. I think government should spend money responsibly. I think government shouldn't spend money that it doesn't have. On a national level, I'm extremely concerned about the amount of national debt that we have. And I don't have kids, but if I did have kids, or I guess I'm getting to the grandkid age here at some point. If I had them, I would be nervous about the kind of future that we're leaving for these folks. And Republicans used to pretend to care about those beliefs. They don't anymore. I think what we're going to find here in the next few weeks is Republicans are going to add a truly astronomical amount of money to the national debt. So, no, I don't think there's any actual conservative party anymore in the U.S. I think you have one party who is about government overreach and using government to control the lives of folks, which is what unfortunately Republicans have been doing. And then I think you have another political party who really is trying to use government in the best possible way to empower people to live whatever life they want to live, as long as it's not hurting anyone else. Live the life that you want to live. So that's kind of where I view it in terms of politics, using words like a conservative or liberal or progressive or whatever. I'm certainly progressive. I'm not afraid of using the word liberal. I think that those are I have beliefs, and those beliefs align with the Democratic Party. Those beliefs are that government should be a tool that empowers and helps people. It shouldn't be the thing that oppresses or suppresses people, like what we've been seeing under this new administration and with the Republicans in the state legislature.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, as I was getting into running for office for the first time, employee on the job site, he said he Googled me. I was like, oh, am I Googleable? First of all, I'm just me. But he asked me, he said, why would you ever want to get into this? You're seemingly successful without politics. Why would you want to put the time and the effort into such a potentially hard life for yourself? And it didn't take me very long at all just to think that I wanted to give back to people the opportunities that I had. And I think that a lot of times, I grew up in a seemingly safe place in rural North Dakota and got a great education from a public school. And I just want to make sure that people have that access to healthcare, that have that education, that have the safety that government provides. So I guess that's where I'm coming from. But I do agree with you. I don't like all those terms, the neocons, and I hate getting into all those stereotypes, I'll say, because let's just talk about what we can agree on. and quit defining ourselves by what we stand against and rather what we stand for. And I think that'll kind of get us over this partisan divide that we've seen for so long.
Agreed. Yeah, I think for anyone, I mean, obviously our podcast is, the audience for our podcast are mostly going to be Democrats, but if you are, listening to this and you are a Republican or you're someone who's independent who maybe has voted for Republicans before, really give our party a look. We may not be what you think we are in terms of the story that's been told about Democrats. We're a party that really just wants you to be able to provide for your family, have access to healthcare, have good education, have a good paying, safe job, and try to live your best life. And that's really what we're trying to do as a party. And I think what our candidates are trying to do when they run as well.
I love that. Just giving people the opportunity to live their best life. I don't want to stand in between anyone in that. Yeah. Is that the pursuit of happiness right there? Is that what that is?
There it is. I think that's what it means. That's certainly that's an interesting phrase, but I think that's really what it is. Happiness is different for everybody. Happiness for me tonight might be, hopefully my phone doesn't ring and I just get to spend an evening watching movies or something. That might be what makes me happy tonight. And the government should not get in the way of that for me. Or maybe happiness is doing something else.
For me tonight, it's not being 30 below and worrying if how much propane is in the tank. Is the furnace running? I'm glad we got this heat wave. Well,
it looks like we're getting a nice little heat wave for the next week. So I'm happy about that.
Jamie, before we jump into Ryan's interview, do you know Ryan? Have you had a lot of interactions with him?
Yeah, I've gotten to know him a little bit. I live in Fargo. He represents District 10, I'm in downtown Fargo. I'm District 44. So my senator is Josh Boucher. But Ryan is fantastic. He's been active in the community for a long time, and he stepped up and he first won a few years ago. That was a new election in that district. It was a brand new district actually that was created, District 10, and he won, and that was fantastic. And he had a really close race this last election. He was without question the #1 target for Republicans in the legislature. They desperately wanted to take him out because he comes from a very purple middle of the road district. And he won re-election. Very impressive. It was close race, not a shock because all races in that district are going to be pretty close. But I'm very proud of him that he worked so hard. Like he was out, knocking on doors and talking to voters. And I bet there's not a single voter in District 10 that didn't at least have the opportunity to visit with him. And it's really a testament not only to him and his success, but hopefully it's a signal to other people who want to run for office that you can win the way he did, which is you just got to talk to as many people as possible. It doesn't guarantee your ability to win, but it certainly makes it much more likely. And so he's doing a great job this session in Bismarck in the legislature. And he's just a good guy as well.
What I like about Ryan and what I've grown to know about him is that he truly represents his district. Ryan's in a very apartment-centric district, yep. And he's really gone to bat for tenant rights this cycle. He's kind of one of the I don't want to say chairman, but he's definitely the driving force. And I really like that because that is truly representing his district instead of corporations or pushing ALEC bills that he saw at a think tank event, out of state. So I'll really give him that credit, but I'm
excited to hear from him.
Without any further ado, here's Ryan. We'll see you soon. Hey guys, welcome to the interview of episode 6. This week we're with Ryan Braunberger. He is our Senate Democrat from District 10. Ryan, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. I was going to welcome you to your own place.
So tell me, before we get into the hardball questions, who is Ryan Braunberger? Like, who are you?
Well, I represent District 10 in Fargo. I was born and raised in the Red River Valley. I have a bachelor's degree in social work. I drive Uber for a living when I'm not in the legislative session. I have 2 cats. And I'm a renter. If nobody else realizes that's why I tend to fight for the renters.
I've been on this new Facebook group about renters' rights, and they're steamed. They're hot. They're excited. They need tenant rights. I think is her name Lisa Andrews?
Sounds right.
I'm sorry, Lisa, if that's wrong. I should step in. Anyway, yeah. So tenant rights is about having a fair check-in and check-out process, and also a reasonable temperature that the apartment needs to be at. I couldn't believe that there are people that are suffering in apartments that are less than 65 degrees, not by choice, but by the fact that their heater doesn't work.
Right.
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
There's bad landlords out there that we need to make sure they're in check, and we don't have the necessary laws on our books like we do from other states that make sure we get protections for them. Because you can't, I like my apartment about 65 degrees myself, but there's people that don't, and they shouldn't have to choose to not live uncomfortably. Right.
What I can't believe in this group that's focusing on is how those, I'll call them slumlords, or let's call a spade what it is.
Yeah.
Don't put money into these places. We have a couple rentals, and if there's something wrong, that's my unit. I want it to be in tip-top shape, regardless of the tenant. And of course, that tenant is a customer, so I'm providing customer service. So I'm going to be Johnny on the spot with it.
Right.
But that's not typical.
No, it's not. It's increasingly not typical. Especially, I think I do have to give a little credit to landlords. I think they did have a really bad experience during COVID with a lot of the mortuariums on being able to evict people that our rent help system didn't pay timely enough. So I understand that. But just because of that, you can't take that out on the people that had no control over that.
Right. And also, like, I have a business, we're in our shop right now, of fixing those units too, if there are bad tenants. So holes in doors, holes in walls, repair and replace flooring. But anyway, well, I'm glad you're fighting for tenant rights. That's a great thing to be on the side of. No, you mentioned growing up in the Valley. Where'd you grow up?
Christine, North Dakota. Small town about 20 miles south of Fargo.
I knew that. I grew up a couple hours north of Fargo. Were you guys farm family?
No, we were transplants. We were like the only people in my school district that weren't related to somebody else.
It's a funny way. I talk about our town of like being so small that we had to wait for someone to break up with a girl so that we could date her. So there was only 7 people in our class.
Yeah, I graduated at 25. So, and we had 2 Ryans and 2 Josses. So how that works, I don't know.
You know, I bragged about being like 7th in my class for GPA, but there was only 15 of us.
Still the upper half.
So where is, for those of out in Radio Land who don't know, where is District 10? What I consider that the apartment, like, is it 45th Circle?
Kind of, yeah. So it's basically West Acres area, Shields Arena. My eastern line is West Fargo, or eastern line is I-29. Western line is West Fargo City line.
Okay, sure.
And then we go down to about 40th Avenue South, and then north is 7th Avenue South.
No, and pardon me if I have any of this wrong. That Ruth Buffalo's district, that was the apartment building complex, and then in redistricting, they shifted her southwest to Horace. Is that right?
They did, yes.
So in redistricting, they gerrymandered the Democrats out of Ruth Buffalo's district, and you got a new district, District 10.
Correct.
Yeah. Ruth, I'm sorry you lost those Democrats. So tell me what committees you're on. You're out in Senate. What's your committee hearing schedule like?
We're in Judiciary and State and Local Government. Judiciary, we are actually done with for crossover. So we're not going to meet in Judiciary until after crossover in March.
Great.
State and Local, we're not nearly close. We still have a full calendar. I think we knocked out 8 bills today and resolutions, but I think we still have about 8 more to go, and 4 actually just to hear yet.
Do you like your committees? Do you have good committee mates? Is it going well?
Yeah. I do like my committees. Obviously, as a Democrat, we only get 1 slot on any of our committees, so I'm the only Democrat on most of them. I actually get along with everybody on my committees. We have a good relationship, even though our ideologies vary very much drastically, because I do have some very conservative members on my judiciary committee, and I am really the only liberal one on there. But we get along and we listen to each other. Don't always agree, but that's the way things work. But
Sure.
you're good.
What I like about me and my life and my Republicans is that they say, Patrick, we can have a conversation with you. We can agree and disagree, and no one yells, and we can get along. And I feel like you're that type of guy too.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I have relationships with people that most people wouldn't think they would give me a time of day.
Yeah. All right. So before we get into, again, the hardball questions, let's talk about, do you have to take that?
No,
You
it was an alarm.
Let's talk about Democrats for a second in red state North Dakota. We are defined, in my opinion, by East and West Coast Democrats. How do you think we should be defined as red state Democrats here in our state?
Oh, East and West Coast. That's an interesting way to put it, since we have no coasts.
Yeah. No, I meant like there's this national narrative.
Oh, yeah,
of what a Democrat is, and I think
and
that
how does North Dakota fit in that?
In North Dakota, we're a little bit different than like a New Jersey Democrat.
I think we're real people. I think that's the biggest thing, is we're real people. We understand the hardworking North Dakotans. We understand that a lot of stuff we see at the national stage doesn't really apply to some of the politics that come in here. Obviously, the world is changing greatly and fast in Washington, D.C. right now. So it's going to be definitely interesting what's going to come out of that and how that's going to affect North Dakotans. I do think that even some of our Republican colleagues believe that some of the stuff that's going on in Washington, D.C. is going to very much hurt North Dakota.
I have a good friend of mine, Jim Gray, and he texted me, or we talked when Trump got elected the first time. And he said, oh my God, Patrick, he's like, I turned my notifications off on my phone. I said, what, Jim, why? And he's like, every time my phone vibrates, I have anxiety about a new world war,
right,
a new XYZ. And, I'm just going to touch national for a second and then we can set it. But this morning, I turned on the news from last night, and apparently it was Ukraine's fault that they got invaded and a war started. I thought, that's quite the spin factor that we're trying to perpetuate, but that's the world we're living in, right?
Well, and the thing is that he keeps alienating all our allies.
Sure.
And it's going to come back and bite us at some point.
I think my friends are my best friends. That's all. Yeah. Even my enemies are my friends. Anyway, that's how you build good coalitions and build good working environments. So what did you work on today? What have you seen in this session? What do you got for us?
Well, we worked on a lot of different things today. We went through a lot of bills on the floor today, and we had some very interesting debates. One of the things we had was about, obviously, the library bill, which would have tasked our state's attorneys with policing our libraries, which in reality, you don't, as a citizen, if you have somebody break into this building, you don't call the state's attorney's office.
No.
You call the police.
Yeah.
Well, in this bill, if we think a library is not doing their job, we can go right to the state's attorney's office, the way this bill is written. Sure. And that's skipping a whole step.
Yeah. I don't even know where to start with this. It's so ridiculous. First of all, I have kids, 15 and 11.
Mm-hmm.
I would give anything for them to put their cell phone down and read a book.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, just read anything. Put Minecraft down. Please stop playing that game. Also, I can get any book delivered to me from Amazon in 2 days.
Right.
So why we're worried about what books are in libraries?
And you're in Bismarck. You have to wait 2 days. We don't have to do that in Fargo.
Do you guys have drones?
No, we don't have drones, but we do have 1 day shipping. So
we drive north of Fargo to our farm, and my kids said, oh my God, Dad, that's the biggest building I've ever seen. Amazon on the north side. So anyway, I don't even know where to start. Like, let's let our librarians be librarians, because that's literally what we're paying them for.
Correct.
But the party of small government is trying to be the party of big government.
Yeah.
Anyway, so how did it go? It came out of committee, do pass?
Well,
I'm
this is on the floor. So this
Okay.
came out of due pass 5-1. That was the one, obviously. Or 6-1. Yeah, there was 7 else in that committee. I was confused. I've got 7 members on my judiciary, 5 members on my state and local, so or 6 members. So I always get who's confused. But it got close. It was a 27-20.
Okay.
So 27 for 20 against. So it did pass the Senate today. So it's on to the House now. Unfortunately. So I think there's going to be new people that are going to come out against it because obviously we're putting the state's attorneys now on mark, where the original bill was putting the AG's office, which I think was wrong too.
Yeah, I think all of it's
wrong as well. So there's going to be some new outrage coming from local government because it's also local control. And a lot of this has to do with parents in their local jurisdictions not getting their way. It has nothing to do with what's right and wrong. It's just parents not getting their way.
Sure.
With what they feel is what their kids should look at. So my biggest frustration with these bills is that we also have all these bills that say, well, parents should have the ultimate rights. Parents' rights, parents' rights, parents' rights. But when it comes to this, we're like, no. And the thing is that we passed the library bill last time.
Yeah.
Last session. That made sure that these types of books that they're concerned about are not in the kids section. So they moved to the adult section. So this bill goes a step further that they can't be easily accessible.
Oh, yeah.
So what does that mean?
Well, I'll tell you what it meant to me when I was 15 is that I'm going to figure out a way to get in that back room because that's where the good books are.
Right.
I mean, that's 15-year-old mentality, right?
And that's what they want to do. They want to put these books in a dark corner that nobody can really knows that exists and just get rid of them.
No, I'm sorry. And I have, my kids are in South Bismarck, about 5 miles south of here. So very rural Bismarck. There's no dark corner of the library.
Correct.
There's no door to X-rated closet.
But there isn't really X-rated books on the shelves either.
Oh, I agree. And actually, when we talk about the books bans, the books that had the most monumental impact on me were Animal Farm, were Catcher in the Rye, were, Boo Ridley, To Kill a Mockingbird. That's what I remember reading. The Giver. I don't know if The Giver's on the don't read list, but it was a good book. Anyway, that's it. Anyway, we live to fight another day, huh?
Correct. We do. We tried. We did what we could, and hopefully they can do something on the house.
Sure. The Bible's got a lot of weird stuff in it. Are they going to put that in the XXX section? Of course not.
Well, I mean, no, because they want to look at it as a whole. They want to look at it as a whole as long as it's within their view as a whole.
What about the Old Testament? That's the really gnarly one. Sorry to go there.
No.
What else did you hit on?
The other one we hit on that was probably a little bit more controversial was authorizing children to stay with their kids up to 18 months in prison in Heart River. This is an interesting conversation. So someone gets arrested that's pregnant.
Yep.
If they are arrested for a crime, go to prison. Usually it's only about 18, their sentence may only be 18, 24 months or whatever. So a very short period of time, but they end up having that baby in prison.
Sure.
So basically this was to allow them to be able to keep that child with them in the prison. These would be only special circumstances. They have to qualify.
Sure.
They have to be non-violent. They have to be not addicted to drugs when they're in there. They have to be clean. They have to follow programs, and they'll be in a separate part of the facility that are basically apartments. Now, this isn't a new thing.
Yep.
Because New York State has been doing this since 1901.
Oh, yeah. Huh?
So for 125 years, they have been doing this.
Okay.
So this is new to North Dakota. What this has found is that when we do this, it reduces recidivism of those women.
Sure.
When they get out, because they get all the help they need during they want to stay with their kids when they get out. Yeah. And they turn their lives around.
Well, like, where does a kid go? What's the alternative?
Alternative is foster care.
Yeah. Okay. So then the other thing you said is a separate location on premise, which is and I'm sorry, my stereotype goes to like Oz on HBO, and all of a sudden you got a screaming baby that doesn't work. So there's separate living quarters.
Correct. So there'd be apartments. So basically, so this is actually a facility that hasn't been built yet.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this is Heart River Heart River Correctional that we're rebuilding in Bismarck,
Okay.
or I think in Mandan. I think it is
Oh, sure.
that we're in the process of rebuilding.
Southwest of town. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm there now.
And this would be building 4 6-unit apartments. So there would be 6 mother and child, up to 6 mother and child in each unit with a family with a common area in the middle, and that would be secure.
Sure.
Only those women would be allowed in there, and then they would have caregivers that would be able to take care of them while they go to Bible study or they go to get counseling for addiction or whatever. So that would be fully encompassed in there. This bill, all it does is it just allows DOCR to make the rules to be able to do it.
I'm sorry, I got a smirk for those of you who are listening. And then I thought, does the library in correctional have a XX section as well for
Those are all
Ridley?
adults.
Yeah, I don't know. How far it goes, I don't know.
But again, this is only be up to 18 months. So
Okay.
once at 18 months, hopefully what the process would be is that hopefully that mother and child would be released from prison at that 18 months.
And they bond.
And they bond.
I couldn't imagine having to have a kid and giving it away to the state. What was your vote on that?
I would say yes.
Yeah,
would say
I think
yes.
I'm a yes too.
And it went past 28 to 18. So
Okay.
I think it's a good bill. And this was the second time it came out.
Sure. And they should be adding on to that place or rebuilding it.
Yeah.
That's in need of repair.
It is. And it's in appropriations budget
Okay.
to do that.
Sure.
So.
Are you sponsoring any bills this cycle? What are you sponsoring?
Yeah, I mean, I did sponsor 3 tenants' rights bills.
Okay.
They all failed
Oh,
already.
yeah. Man.
I do have one tenants' rights bill that did pass, and it was basically giving people the ability to seal eviction records after 7 years.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that.
And then if they've been a victim of domestic violence,
Sure.
so that they can, if they've been evicted because of that, they can do that. So it just gives them a mechanism to do that. It passed and moved over.
So let me ask you about these bills, even though they failed. Sorry about that. I don't mean to keep poking you.
That's okay.
Where did these come from in your life? These come from constituents asking you, or?
Yeah, these came from constituents and just information that we've had in our community. We have a big,
Okay.
and like I said, I represent 70% of my constituents are renters.
Sure.
Uh,
You didn't go to an out-of-state ALEC conference and get handed bills and?
No, actually, I gave it to another colleague who did a lot of the work.
Okay.
Senator Mather did a lot of the work.
Oh, great.
That did, and I just carried them through. But I was working on it. Now, you say sorry that they failed, but actually, I think I'm okay with them failing because I think it provides us with a bouncing point to be able to make something better. I think we also built some relationships with even the Apartment Association.
Great.
That we can work on doing some work during the interim and actually come back with some even better policies to help renters and that also don't punish good landlords.
Sure.
Because we don't want to punish good landlords. We want to punish the bad actors.
Right.
So we want to make sure it's balanced.
And again, and I'm sorry to bring it up, I can't believe these places are renovating carpet on the backs of their tenants. And
right.
It's insane to me what these bad actors are doing.
Yeah. So and those 2, and then I carried a couple of bills, one for the K-12 Coordination Council, carried 2 bills for that. Just providing some expanding their ability to do what they do, and then I provided some funding, and then I carried one for my sheriff back home.
Okay. What are some of the bad bills that you've seen come through? Is some amazing, horrible bills?
Not in the Senate. Senate has been pretty tame this year. We've had some bad bills. Like we've had a lot of shared parenting bills that are pretty bad. That basically in a divorce, it would automatically treat both parents the same. So in theory, it sounds good. But what if but it doesn't, it takes what the courts do today, which is look at what's the best interest of the child
Yeah.
and shifts it to what's the best interest of the parent.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
So realistically, we need to make sure that we have the best interest of the child first and then determine where the parent stands in that.
100%.
Because there can be, if we just decide that, okay, we're going to level a playing field, both parents are equal. Well, what if one of those parents is abusing the child?
Yeah.
And that's why they're getting a divorce. Do
Sure.
you really want that a level playing field at that point? You don't.
No.
And I think the burden of proof in those bills was really high. And
Okay.
as we know, domestic violence, sexual assault on children are very low conviction rates.
Okay.
And oftentimes, especially with domestic violence, oftentimes those go underreported or underreported because it's always he shed, she shed.
Sure.
And it's hard to make those claims. So that's, I fully was against those bills. Two of them, we were able to, I think there's 3 or 4, only one passed, but the rest we were managed to kill.
Okay.
But those are really the bad bills. The other one that we had today was about surveys that are given out in schools.
Oh.
For K-12. Right now, your kid gets your school gets selected. They're called YRBS or Youth Risk Assessment Surveys.
Okay.
Behavioral surveys, youth risk behavioral surveys, which basically ask questions like, have you smoked in the last 24 hours? When was the last time you drove while texting? Talk about, are you sexually active? These type of questions that we use to determine risk of our kids and help. And it verifies a lot of different things. Well, what this bill did, and it did pass on a very narrow margin, but it did pass. What it does is that instead of, as a parent, it's right now those go out and the parent has an opt-out option.
Okay.
So they can look at it and say, I don't want to do this. And the schools already send out this list of whatever and can look at say, I don't want my kid to have this survey. And you can do that. But what this bill does is it flips it so that in order to have the survey, you have to opt in.
Opt in. Okay.
Which will severely reduce the number of people that are going to participate because you're going to have parents that are just apathetic and just won't ever respond. That may not get those surveys. And then you're going to have the parents that already would have responded no, would have already responded no. So then you're going to have data that's going to be obsolete that we're not going to be able to use it.
Where does that data go?
So it goes to, a lot of it goes to the Department of Public Instruction.
Okay.
So it also goes to Health and Human Services. So they go internally that we use for everything from tobacco use, from risky sexual behaviors to all sorts of different studies that we use to compile to determine what we need to do more programming on.
Sure.
So
interesting. Well, yeah, I guess I didn't really think I haven't thought about where those questionnaires would go, but I guess I'm glad that they're being done. So did opt in, opt out? What was the result of that?
That passed,
Okay.
Unfortunately, and it's going to go on to the Senate, and it's going to be, or go on to the House. So it's going to be it could be bad, and we may not get accurate data going forward, and we may not be able to it could affect funding for some of these programs.
Ooh.
Could affect where money goes and how effective we can be at preventing things or looking at preventing suicide.
Sure.
And stuff like that.
Yeah. When I think of the term harm reduction, you need to have the right data.
Mm-hmm.
And by allowing people to only opt into taking that information is going to limit the amount of data. That doesn't seem like good policy to me.
Right.
That government there. Well, interesting. What else do you got?
I don't know. We can talk about a lot of things.
Well, I got one for you then.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I got really irked this week.
Okay.
North Dakota Doge. Like, that's ridiculous.
You know,
but it passed like overwhelmingly, right?
yeah, I believe it did in the House. I haven't heard it. I haven't heard what it's looking like.
I think you're going to have to fix it in the Senate.
Maybe. I think it's interesting that I believe it was a Republican that sponsored it. So basically what they're saying is that we don't trust the 25 years of Republican leadership in North Dakota to manage everything correctly. I mean, Democrats signed on or voted for it, I believe, because I think it was almost unanimous. I think there maybe only one or two.
I think for some reason, I think Liz Comey was a dissenting vote.
Yeah. So, I mean, but I think it really is telling on how much the supermajority really doesn't trust themselves.
Okay.
And I think we kind of just went along with it because we were like, yeah, we think there needs to be some things, but.
I'm going to take a weird line here. I ran for auditor in 2020. I don't necessarily like the viciousness that Josh Gallion, our current state auditor, has.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to be a watchdog and not a guard dog. I think he is political with the way that he works his audits.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that the auditor's function is to do this. And if we want more transparency, we need to fund the department that's already tasked with going after these things. We don't need to create a new government, a new realm of government. The administrative oversight in that is ridiculous. And again, talk about the party of big and small government, you know? So I don't know. And then the not trusting. I'm going to stick on this one for a second. We have to trust the people that we elect and we put in these positions. There has to be a baseline of trust. Mm-hmm. And I think that when we start going down the slippery slope of distrust, where does that end? Like, how much transparency, how much fresh air does there need to be? And again, I don't want you guys to think, if you're listening or watching, I want there to be accountability. I think that there is a significant lack of accountability with the Republicans. But again, as it comes to North Dakota Doge, I even feel stupid saying that. Like, Josh Gallion's there to do it. So let's fund him. Let's give, leprosy. Let's have him work with legislative audit and fiscal review committee to get him the money and the funds and the FTEs to work through the problems that we have. Creating another auditor doesn't seem to be a solution to me.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I agree. I mean, we are making some changes to the auditor's office. I know I did some stuff that came through to kind of level the playing field on who pays what to who.
Sure.
We're doing a lot of left pocket, right pocket things with the auditor's office. So we're going to try to. We did work on a bill. I don't know where that's at. Actually, I don't remember where that's at, but we did work on a bill to try to clean that up a little bit so that we don't have as much money just constantly moving from one department to another.
Sure. And
try to clear some of that up. I have had, I sit on state and local government, so a lot of Gallion stuff comes through my committee. He may be good at his job, but I think some of his tactics go over the top.
I completely agree with you. He's political with his office.
So, and I think that needs to be reined in. Yeah. I think he needs to be better at doing that. I think we do need some oversight. I know there is a bill that was done by Senator Weston to look into how the Department of Commerce distributed funds in one of those funds.
Yeah.
Because there's some really concern out in the citizenry that was a slush fund for the previous governor's office.
Totally, because
to his people.
Commerce did the grants for the fertilizer facilities, right? In Williston and Jamestown. If you guys haven't watched, I'm sure Joel could tell you all about it. But we gave $75 million to an energy company in Williston to develop a fertilizer facility. We gave $75 million to a fertilizer facility in Jamestown to do the same thing. The one in Williston didn't execute like their grant application. And instead of clawing back the money, we just gave it to the other facility. And what wilds me about this, and you may have heard me talk about it, is that $150 million could have funded school lunches for us year, or for 2 years.
Correct.
And instead we're giving it to private entities.
So I think, I think this bill we did vote it and we did pass it this week, just this week. And I think there's also merit to having outside people looking at stuff too.
Sure.
And I think there's times and places for that. And I think this is one of those times.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. The Republicans are putting bills forward to audit the Republicans, even though there's already an audit.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Well, it's the Republicans.
Yeah. Let's make a new branch of government. It's a good thing we revamped the EPA and made the North Dakota EPA. Now we're going to make a second auditor's office. How about term limits? Did term limits come up in the Senate, or was that a House bill?
Well, I think there's one in the House and there's one in the Senate. I just heard one today in the Senate today. It's actually a Senate concurrent resolution.
Yeah.
That would change it from what is it, 8 years in each house, to 3 complete 4-year terms. So that would be 12 total years in each chamber. The one term that's most important that is complete.
Okay.
So like people like me, for instance, I only got 2 years the first time and I only get 4 years and then I'm termed out.
Yeah.
So I only get 6 total. So that would alleviate some of that. Obviously it's longer than what the citizens want. So I think there's some concerns around that. Also some concerns that if we do push this SCR forward, that it will automatically require a lawsuit because of the way that the other resolution, the initiated measure, came through saying that we can't touch it.
Sure.
One of the arguments about though that did come up that was kind of interesting is that why we talked about is why do citizens get to say you can't touch this, but if we were to do that to you guys, wouldn't you be just as mad?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
no, and how I'll respond is I don't think I was a no on term limits in the initiated measure. I think it was a bad initiated measure. I don't think 8 years is long enough. I think it was sold differently than it was written. When you talk about 16 years or 4 full terms, I think that's long enough. I think the budget is so hard to get your head wrapped around. 8 years isn't long enough to do it. And in your case, 6 years.
6 in the Senate.
It's 6 in the Senate, and then
I could go. Yeah, you could 8 in the House if I wanted
to. So I think that gives too much powers to the lobbyists who really know how it works because they have vested interests. So I like what you're putting forward, but my issue is that it was the voice of the people.
I understand. Yeah.
So I'm torn on that.
I'm not going to say that I don't know how I'm going to vote on that yet.
Yeah.
I see where. I don't want to disagree with the citizens because I do fully believe the citizens have a right to do that. However, I think there are times when things don't always get fully thought out on the consequences. That we luckily as legislators get the advantage of having the public tell us when we try to push something forward on what those unintended consequences could be for putting something forward so that we can make the best law possible.
Yeah.
Where as an initiated measure, I don't think there's necessarily a full process that allows that per se.
No, that was a constitutional measure, right?
Yes.
So we need more of our citizens to vote to overturn it. Is that correct?
We would need.
Is there a higher threshold?
There is not.
Okay.
There is a bill that would make it a higher threshold in the House. That would make it 60%.
And I disagree with that. We don't need a higher threshold, but I thought, and I'm sorry, there's so many the minutia in the details. I assumed that since it was a constitutional measure, it needed a higher than 50% plus 1. But I don't envy you having to vote on that because I see that as a tough one.
It's a tough one.
I agree with where you're going, but I don't agree with bucking the voice of the people.
It's tough. We have these things all the time, and I have sat on the floor and argued with people last session that tried to overturn some of the stuff that the citizens did. And I argued that it was sports betting. I think sports betting, and then we had another bill right after it. I don't know what the second bill was, but we spent so much time saying that why should we put a resolution out there for the citizens to vote on sports betting? That's not our job. We should let the citizens, if they really want it, they should put the initiative measure.
Yeah.
But then us turn around and try to negate. And I argued, I've argued that we spent so much time saying that we shouldn't do this because it should be the citizens. But why are we trying to do this here?
I'm sorry, I'm writing notes. I didn't want to forget about it.
Sorry.
The Turtle Mountains.
Yeah.
Had a big, hey, so my senator, Diane Larson, that's District 30.
Yeah.
She's my representative or senator, had a pretty big faux pas this week.
She did.
If you guys didn't catch this, Jamie Azure, Chairman
Azure, yeah.
Chairman Azure of Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa are trying to put a casino southwest of Grand Forks. I don't know if I have an opinion whether that's good or bad. However, Diane said that she doesn't know how it's getting funded, and perhaps cartel is behind it. And that is a bad choice of words, I'll tell you.
It's a very much bad choice. And what's worse is that she was talked about it before that floor session.
She did. So
no, people from the tribe had talked to her about that cartel comment. I had that conversation with her off camera a few days before this hit the floor,
sure,
telling her that this is not right. Just talk about this cartels. So it's not even that she said it on camera.
Sure.
It's that she had already had conversations with people where she had told them that they think it's coming from cartels, and she had corrected her on it. So it's not even that it was just a faux pas. She had already been warned about this.
Sure.
Before she even we hit the floor with it.
Wild.
So, but slightly in her defense, and maybe because of her seniority, we'll put it as seniority, she was confused on other bills, because we did have other bills that went back to back on that.
Okay.
That did talk about cartels, because the bill that we had about the horse racing, historic horse racing, and dog tracks.
Okay.
We had a lot of conversations about cartels, and where the money goes for the dog tracks. So I don't know if there was some confusion in her and she was confusing the stories. So, but that doesn't negate the fact that she had already been talked to by people, the representatives of Turtle Mountain,
sure,
that it was not cartels before she made that floor speech.
I think that was a pretty big faux pas.
Yeah.
I think it may have been intentional because she had already had conversations. And I think it may, like you said, because of your seniority, swayed votes in order for that to get voted down.
Could be.
I hate to connect those dots. I do believe we shouldn't assign intent to actions, but seems pretty clear to me that that's a connectable series of events. Ryan, I got to let you go. What, you got any words you want to, words of wisdom, state of the state?
Stay connected. Just stay connected. I think the biggest thing that we can do now as Democrats is make sure we stay connected, stay energized from now through the next election. Right now, everybody's talking a lot because it's top of mind because we're legislating, but we need to make sure that it goes beyond May. We need to keep going. We need to find candidates for the upcoming election. I know Bismarck has some candidates that are outlined.
We do.
So that's great. You guys have great things, and I will be back in Fargo this weekend for reorg for all our Cass County districts. So hopefully we can get some things going, and we need to push forward. We need to push hard. And if we want to win the next election, if we want to gain some seats, we need to do that.
Now I have to tell you, and I'm sorry because Jamie Selzler got me on this last week. He's my co-host. This is going to view on Monday. So it'll already be over the state or the Fargo reorg.
Okay.
But is there chili cook-off this year?
that I've heard of.
Okay, that was Fargo's thing. This is going to be my first Fargo reorg that I've missed in about 10 years. I'm kind of disappointed I can't make it. But, well, hey, I appreciate you coming.
No problem.
Thanks for doing what you do.
Thank you, Senator Ryan Braunberger, for being with us this week from District 10 in Fargo. Please keep up the fight and keep up the good work there in Bismarck. We really appreciate it. Before we wrap up this week, I just want to invite folks to come to a few events. This coming Saturday in Grand Forks at 10 a.m., the Northern Valley Democrats are meeting for their reorgs. Ramada Inn in Grand Forks at 10 a.m. on Saturday. It's all the Grand Forks districts and those districts that are just north. You can go to DemNPL.com to take a look at that on the events page to see if your district is included. And then the next day, this coming Sunday, in Velva at the Senior Citizen Center, their District 6 reorg is happening, 2:30 p.m., Velva Senior Citizen Center. I'll be speaking at both events, so hopefully I see you there. I'm from Velva, I'm from Minot, but the Selzler family's from Velva, so I always get incredibly excited to go back there. Lots of good memories in Velva. And then lastly, I'm guest hosting this Friday for Joel Heidkamp on News and Views from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. this Friday. So feel free to call in, text in, listen in. We'll be announcing some guests later this week, but it should be pretty good. I think there'll be one or two really kind of fun major level guests. So I invite you to listen in and to go on our website, DemNPL.com, to look at all the upcoming events in your area. How about you, Pat? What do you have going on?
Well, again, and I feel like a broken record, but I want to make sure that everyone comes March 22nd, Horizon, for our Bisman Dems reorg. That's going to go on from 10 to 2. We're going to hopefully pack that Horizon cafetorium, as they call it. And then, of course, May 3rd, again, Henry Dunn from the January 6th insurrection, police officer that was harmed in that event. I'm really excited to get to see him. I love that we're getting top-notch speakers for these events that aren't, long-time political, bigwigs. We're getting people that are really in the front lines of this this administration, I'll say, for lack of a better term. You guys, I want to end on this today. I'm a big 7 Habits Highly Effective People with Franklin Covey fan. And I heard about this gentleman through that book the first time. His name's Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl is a Holocaust survivor and became a psychologist. And, he spent a lot of time in the internment camps. And in the internment camps, from the stories I understand, is that he treated everyone with the utmost respect. And that he's quoted with this famous line, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space, there is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. And I thought that was valid to bring up today because a lot of us are feeling kind of down and out. A lot of us are feeling like we don't have control. And I want to let you know that you do. You can control how you react. And I'm asking you, as Jamie and I are, as Lisa is, as a lot of people are, to step into the fold because we need you at these meetings. That's why I'm pushing that March 22nd so hard, is because we need the Democrats. We need people involved in politics so we can make a difference. And the time is now. So in between your stimulus and response, find your freedom. And I hope that your freedom is leaning in and helping us do what we do. I appreciate your time. Thank you.